Good morning, everyone. This is an affirmation for self-healing from Kriyananda. And the affirmation this morning is God remembrance. To remember God means not only to think of Him constantly, but to realize that finding Him is an act of remembrance, truly. For it is from Him that we have come. When the clouds of delusion evaporate from our minds, what will be left is what was there always, hidden behind the clouds, the blazing sun of divine consciousness. One should not strain nor reach outward mentally to think of God. Know that He has been yours always, nearer than your nearest thoughts and feelings, nearer than the very prayers you offer Him. Think not merely about Him, think to Him. Share with Him your passing feelings, your idlest fancy. Talk with Him. Practice His presence, at first perhaps for minutes a day, then for hours, and then all the time. Please affirm with me with a lot of energy at the point between the eyebrows. I will live in the remembrance of what I am in truth.
I will live in the remembrance of what I am in truth.
Bliss infinite.
Bliss infinite.
Eternal love.
Eternal love.
I will live in the remembrance of what I am in truth.
I will live in the remembrance of what I am in truth.
Bliss infinite.
Bliss infinite.
Eternal love.
Eternal love.
A little more quietly. I will live in the remembrance of what I am in truth.
I will live in the remembrance of what I am in truth.
Bliss infinite.
Bliss infinite.
Eternal love.
Eternal love.
And now in a whisper, I will live in the remembrance of what I am in truth. Bliss infinite. Eternal love. Now silently, with deep concentration and devotion at the point between the eyebrows, take it into super consciousness. I will live in the remembrance of what I am in truth. Bliss infinite. Eternal love. I will live in the remembrance of what I am in truth. Bliss infinite, eternal love. And please pray silently with me. Lord, Thou art always with me. Help me to feel behind my thoughts Thy inspiration, behind my every emotion, Thy calm, all-transforming love. Om Shanti Shanti. The reading this morning is from Rays of the One Light, the weekly commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda and Paramahansa Yogananda. Week 50, Living in the Presence of God. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. In the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 25, we read of a king, capitalized, for the references to God, who welcomed certain devotees to the divine consciousness, saying, I was an hungered, and you gave me meat. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and ye took me in. Naked, and ye clothed me. I was sick, and you visited me. I was in prison, and you came unto me. The elect asked him when it was they had served him in these ways. And the king answered, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you have done it unto one of the least of these my children, ye have done it unto me. To see God as residing in every human being, as indeed He does, is to open oneself to limitless opportunities for serving Him. Paramahansa Yogananda, in Autobiography of a Yogi, described a saint who lived in this consciousness as the greatest man of humility I ever knew. He described a seemingly chance encounter with this saint. Another day found me walking alone near the Howrah railroad station. I stood for a moment by a temple, silently criticizing a small group of men with drum and cymbals who were violently reciting a chant. How undevotionally they use the Lord's divine name in mechanical repetition, I reflected. My gaze was astonished by the rapid approach of Master Mahashaya. Sir, how come you here? The saint, ignoring my question, answered my thought. Isn't it true, little sir, that the beloved's name sounds sweet from all lips, ignorant and wise? He passed his arm around me affectionately. I found myself carried on his magic carpet to the merciful presence. If you would see God, watch for him everywhere. If you would hear his voice, listen for it in all sounds and also in their supporting silences. If you would know God, seek his wisdom behind merely human knowledge. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the 6th chapter, it states, "One who beholds my presence everywhere, and all things dwelling equally in me, he never loses loving sight of me, nor I of him, through all eternity." Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om Shanti Shanti.
And good morning. This reading is from Whispers from Eternity by Paramahansa Yogananda, entitled, I Want to Know, Wilt Thou Be Mine? I care not if in the destruction of my desires I must shatter my very self, jostling through sectillions of lives and undergoing again and again the throes of birth and the pangs of death. I can endure all sufferings as long as, at the end of it, I attain my supreme goal, oneness with thy bliss. What care I if I leave behind mangled heaps of my fleshly forms, broken by my struggles to reach thee? I offer all my earthly happiness in exchange for thy joy. I renounce all elusive joys for eternal joy in thy joy, for eternal freedom in thy joy. Thy bliss alone is mine, alone is mine. Oh, tell me clearly that thou wilt surely be mine. I can wait patiently then 100,000 years, as if they were but a day. Tell me, wilt thou be mine? When I was little, I came upon a book. I don't remember if it was something my parents gave me or perhaps it was one of the books that are available at school. But it had a real impact. And though it masqueraded as a children's book, it really was for everyone. And it was called The Giving Tree. Maybe you have seen it or read it over the years. And it was about this little boy who loved this tree. And, excuse me, can you, oh no, that's okay, that's fine. I thought the pump was on. I saw that light. Always concerned about water in this house over the last few weeks. And so this little boy had this favorite tree. And he climbed on the tree, and when the tree bore fruit, it was an apple tree, then he, of course, enjoyed the delicious apples. And from time to time, then there would be the various twigs and limbs that would be gathered by he and his friends, and they would make a bonfire and enjoy that. And then, as he got a little bit older, throughout the whole book, they're calling him the boy. And it's fun because he's pretty soon not a boy. He's a teenager, and then he's a young adult, and so forth. And so at one point then, he and his friends, they cut a limb or two off because they want some firewood for their little firewood business. And now he's growing older. And now he's perhaps in his mid-30s. And he gets married and he needs a house. So he cuts the tree down. and makes a house of the tree. And then some time passes, and the last picture is of him as an old man. And you can see from his face and from his bent frame that he's had a challenging life. And so where does he go? He goes and sits on the stump of the tree. And there you see on the tree, there's a heart. And it was something that he carved when he was a little boy. And in the heart it says, "Me and tree." And so I've always remembered that, because here at the very end, it's still loving his tree. Now the tree is hardly a tree anymore. It's just a stump. But nevertheless, he has always loved this tree, gone through all of the various changes that life brought him. And so when we think about practicing the presence of God, it's very important that we understand that God and the great ones, they never, ever, as Yogananda himself said, will ever forsake us. And we can turn our backs on them. And there's a wonderful poem of Yogananda's where he's stating, you can abuse me, and I'll love you. And you can do all kinds of things, and it goes on and on. It's a beautiful poem. And still, I will be there. And so in practicing the presence of God, it's very, very important that we keep in mind that at the end, it is a happy ending. Toward the end of Swami Kriyananda's life there in Gurgaon, often we would go and see movies, and the movies were invariably Walt Disney cartoons. And we would see them multiple times. You'd say, "Okay, Swami, what's playing today? Oh, let's go see Bambi." And we think, "Okay, here we go, for the 6th time we see Bambi," and so on. But he loved these movies, and of course we did too, because the message invariably with the prince and the princess and all these various things, ultimately, after some adventures, was a happy ending. And I couldn't help but think that as he was, nearing his time on earth, that the joy that he was feeling and the joy that he imparted to everyone was such that he was broadcasting, "Be of good cheer," that it will all work out in the end. And the more that we can hold on to that thought very vigorously, especially when we're being tested, it's very, very important in practicing the presence of God, because otherwise the Maya claims us. And that's why Yogananda was so keen on us being happy all the time, because otherwise we're claimed. And the Maya, of course, is pure genius. Remember, God is a director and playing all parts. And so it comes in through the side door when we're vulnerable. We haven't been sleeping. There's been too many birthday parties and all of these various things. And we're just staggering from the experience. All good fun, but at one point it's taken its toll. Too much birthday cake and ice cream. And maybe we start to, get a little cold and so forth. And maybe the challenge at work, on it goes. But the yogi strives, really, day in and day out, every moment possible, to stay awake and to remember that, and it's good to test this. When the challenges do come, has the love been withdrawn? Has Divine Mother withdrawn the love? Has Guru withdrawn the love? Never. You'll never find it to be so. You may have to be like a submarine and go deep, deep within your own soul to find that to be true. But it is always there. Like Swami Kriyananda's extraordinary experience when he was thrown out of SRF. And it was very, very traumatic for him. And of course, it's a happy ending. It worked out that we have Ananda because of it. But still, at that time, he didn't even want to be in this world. That's how severe the test was. And so some time passed. And luckily for him, Dr. Haridas Chaudhry there in San Francisco, who had met Master, was at one point at Swami Kriyananda's, and there's no coincidences, at his parents' home. And there was Swami spending time there in trying to get back his sense of purpose and all of these things as he had left his organization, Yogananda's organization. And there was Haridas Chaudhry, and they called him there at his home Don. So Haridas Chaudhry didn't know who he was. He was Donald Walters. And at one point it came out that he was also Swami Kriyananda. He says, "Oh, I've heard of you," because Swami Kriyananda was very well known. He was a spokesman for Self-Realization Fellowship for many, many, many years, the vice president of the organization. He was a prominent figure there. And so what did Haridas Chaudhry say? He said, "Oh, I would love if you would speak at my center." Well, Swami Kriyananda, this was in San Francisco, Swami Kriyananda wanted to, do anything but that, because he had felt, really, how this test was so severe, he felt that Yogananda had perhaps abandoned him. And so it was, a tremendous test, a test of a lifetime, truly. Well, it was interesting because Haridas Chaudhry was very persistent. Sometimes when people will say, "Can you help me with such and so?" And you say, "Well, let me see, I'll get back to you perhaps." And that's it. But Haridas Chaudhry would not take no for an answer. And he really did feel like Swami was like a younger brother. And so at one point, then Swami Kriyananda spoke there at the center in San Francisco. And much to his astonishment, a man came up to him, or a woman, I'm forgetting now, and said, "I felt so much joy in your talk." And he thought that perhaps the person had attended a different talk and was confused. Maybe in the other room or something. He just couldn't believe that a person would feel the joy when his suffering was so acute. He wanted to leave this world. And then he went back home, and he had he realized that there was that joy, and he was astonished by it, that the joy had not left him. He had to acknowledge that, and the Guru was there, and God was there. And then Divine Mother, to play a trick on him, you might say, Dr. Haridas Chaudhry had a heart attack. And his wife, he recovered and he was fine. But during that time of convalescence, which was some months, his wife, Haridas Chaudhry's wife, came to Swami and said, "Please, if you could only be the director while he's recovering." Well, what could Swami say? They had been so good to him. They really had adopted him in so many ways and given him back his life. Well, that was the beginning then. That was in the mid-60s, and a couple of years later, a scant couple of years later, then he founded Ananda. In 1967, the first property was purchased, the seclusion retreat, 69, our village, and so forth. And now we're very close to our 50th anniversary of getting our community, which Yogananda was so keen on developing. World Brotherhood colonies. Dream of them here in India. Visualize them one of these fine days. That's what we want too. Yogananda said they would spread like wildfire. And what better place than here in India? We have, a handful of communities worldwide that we've founded over the years, that Swami has founded. But still, the need is very great all over, because people are living in community. They're not intentional community. They're unintentional community, just because of the need to make money, which of course is important too, etc., etc. But really what we want in practicing the presence of God is support. We must have that. And that's not easy, because this world doesn't support us. Whether it's in the workplace, it's rare that we can be in a workplace that's sattvic. It's rare, even in the home where we love our friends and neighbors and so on, where it's sattvic enough so that it supports us in our aspirations rather than being threatened. when we head off to Babaji's cave, and the relatives are thinking, uh-oh, they may not come back, which of course is always a possibility. It would be fine by us as yogis, because we do embrace our dharma as it's been given to us, but we've had so many incarnations as monks and nuns and as hermits and so forth. As Yogananda said, Swami or one of the other monks had asked if he had been, in seclusion and so forth before, and he said many times. You would have to be, you would have had to experience that in order to be here. So for all of us to have pierced the veil, which is not easy, and to be practicing the presence of God as we aspire to on a daily basis, one will have had to have spent a lot of time alone. And we prize our time alone, even though it may be sometimes not very long. I think sometimes, this traffic, we're always lamenting the traffic, and I'm from Los Angeles, so I know traffic in a big way. But really, you can practice a little seclusion in traffic if you don't, succumb to road rage and other things. Use the time wisely. If we're all, stuck, then we might as well chant God's name and, sneak in a few kriyas if the car is stopped and use that time wisely. And so in practicing the presence of God, one really wants to stay aware. I believe an affirmation, perhaps it was last week, was on alertness. And that's a very, very good quality to embrace, because most people, and yogis too, can fall from being alert, and we'll do things kind of, either haphazardly or whatever, and all of a sudden we think, oh my gosh, no wonder my joy has fled. The lights are home, as they say, but nobody's home. And so we've gone through the day perhaps, and we've forgotten our own soul nature. And we have to do something about that again and again and again. For us, really, and it's really something that is such a gift, when finally we realize on a deep enough level that we are the soul, and we are joy, and we are love. It's always been with us, and of course in time we'll awaken from this dream. So, when we fall from that state, and we're not practicing the presence of God, and we're not feeling the Guru's presence, the first thing to do, we read today about Master Mahashaya, who Master praised as a great saint of humility, and certainly he was. For us, we should do all that we can to be humble enough so that when the Maya strikes and we get thrown down for a moment or a day or a week or a month or a few years, and finally we surface, then there should be enough humility to say, thank you, God, and start over. Right there on the spot. I've been having fun with my meditations lately. And of course, one's mind, even after years of practicing meditation, can drift. And it's a sad state of affairs, but nevertheless, there it is. And I've been enjoying lately this practice, another way of practicing the presence of God, when my mind drifts, and all of a sudden I forget, the importance of concentration and devotion, and I feel like I've surfaced, and all of a sudden I can take a breath of fresh air of, again, being aware of what I'm doing. I'm not, shopping right now, I'm meditating. I'm meditating. Well, I did do very well with my list, though, so at least it was productive. Now I know what I want for dinner and where to go. And so we surface. A very good practice that I really am enjoying now is right there on the spot saying, thank you. Thank you. Because we've been lifted, it's like the lifeguard, God the lifeguard, Guru the lifeguard, has come, and all of a sudden we find ourselves out to sea, and we're drowning. And that's really what it is like when we're not in God. We're drowning in the Maya, drowning in our karma. And so the lifeguard, God and the great ones come, and they grab us and take us to shore, and we're safe. And so in practicing the presence of God, dive deep into your attitude. If you have the right attitude, then you're fine. If your attitude is in need of help, work on it and make it a top priority, because it's very easy in this world, because this world reinforces bad attitude and it gives us a million justifications. The reason that I'm a grumpy person is the dog's barking all night long. I haven't slept for 10 years. The reason I'm grumpy is that I still don't have a cook. I had a cook and now they went to Bihar, and now what am I going to do? And the reason I'm grumpy is I wash my car and it gets dirty again. And I have it in the garage and still dust is collected from the road. And on and on and on it goes. And so it's not going to help us at all to forget the importance of right attitude in practicing the presence of God. Practice right attitude. And as we do, we will find that again and again we're lifted out of this sea of testing and challenges. And we find God's smile in our hearts. The Guru's smile in our hearts, because we're being good sports. And we were taught that when we were younger. I don't know about you, but in the U.S., we were taught in sports to be a good sport when you lose. And it wasn't always easy for me. I remember my mother wouldn't even play board games with me, because if I lost, I was really unhappy. And I thought, God, I wish I had known a little bit more. My poor mother, she was just, she probably had ironing to do and other things, and she was taking time to be with me, and then I would, spit fire at her because I wasn't happy that I lost the board game, ridiculous. And it took me a little while. As a matter of fact, when I got to Ananda, I couldn't even play volleyball because the spirit of competition was so fierce in me. And I thought, I've got to get over this. So I worked on it, and pretty soon I could play volleyball and not worry about who won, that we were just having a fun time. And even in those early days, Swami in his mid-40s would play volleyball with us, which was an added joy with his orange robes and so forth. It was good fun. So in practicing the presence of God, you may not, and I know it was an issue for me, I didn't like the thought of practice. I thought, I've gotten so far away from God that I have to read about Him in a book. I have to practice His presence. My God, this is embarrassing. But I thought, well, if that's where I'm at, so be it. And so in the beginning, it's practicing. Practicing, staying centered, staying in God. But in time, as Yogananda said to his advanced disciples, you have smooth sailing. And so for us in time, the practice will fall away. And love will be there, the joy will be there, and we'll think, practice, my goodness, how silly. Why practice the presence of God? He's with me. As Yogananda said, He thinks my thoughts. He tastes my food through me. He does everything through me. And so that's what we want. But in the beginning, as Yogananda, as Swami often talked about, get back to the basics. And that's very important. So practicing the presence of God is the basics. And that's where we all are until we attain the final state of samadhi, which of course we hope for in this life. So, God bless you. And as I like to say, keep up the good work.